All right.
Like,
in that case,
Boom.
it's not has nothing to do with if sound's coming out of your computer.
I hope not.
Welcome to the GRPod. It's been a little while. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Kelsey, Raleigh, Jake.
Thank you, Luke.
Brothers together. Cool. We're excited to talk about a bunch of different things. A little Olympic recap. The best race in the world just happened the other day, the American Birkebeiner. And man, we got some other things to talk about. First, would love to just say that our prayers and thoughts are with the people in Ukraine. And since we compete, especially because we compete in international sports, we come into contact with these guys. And I know, Jake, you've become friends with some of them, perhaps some of the Ukrainians, or at least interact with them. I guess like the practical updates there are that the end of the season Nordic World Cups that were supposed to be in Russia were canceled. For biathlon, the Russian and Belarusian athletes are not allowed to compete for the rest of the season for their nations. So it sounded like individual athletes will be invited.
But Russia did announce that no athletes, or they will not be sending teams.
Okay. So the IBU rule was that they weren't going to be allowed to compete for their nation, and then
Right.
Russia just said that they aren't going to compete.
I heard that it was they can't score any points at all, not just like they're not able to score any.
Yeah, I mean,
Cup
that would
points.
go along with competing for they're not competing for their nation, so they wouldn't be allowed to score like Nations Cup points.
Right.
I thought I guess I didn't see it, but then one of the more striking things was just Petrushny, one of the best or the best Ukrainian male biathlete, posting that none of the Ukrainians will be competing in biathlon races for the rest of the year because they have to go back and defend their homeland, which definitely made it a little bit more personal. So I don't know, does anyone else want to say anything about that before we get into the recaps of racing?
I mean, it feels like a little bit odd to talk about like the sporting implications of, a war,
Sure.
Another nation violating another's sovereignty. It seems like like Luke said, on the biathlon end, Russian, Belarusian teams will not participate the rest of the year. On the cross country side, I know that the head of the Norwegian Ski Association said that Russian athletes would not be welcome at the Norwegian cross country World Cups in Drammen and Oslo. And there was a lot of dialogue around that among the Russian coaches of the different training groups, Igor Sorin and Marcus Kramer, both of who had two of the training groups, came out and said that, their people are just sportsmen. They're a sports team. They shouldn't be punished in this way. I think it's appropriate that they are barred and that they are sanctioned because more than many other nations, the Russian national teams are inextricably linked with the state. And so I feel that their connections to the government and the nation merit their exclusion. And obviously that's for debate, and it's the focus is on the humanitarian and the civilian and the sovereignty crises that are happening. But it is a conflict that's going to keep influencing everything, including the sports we talked about.
Yeah. I also think it is worth noting, I totally agree with you, Raleigh, but some of the Russian athletes have come out with strong statements against the war in Ukraine. So I think it's good to note that they are not necessarily supporting this. But I think that because of what you said with the link between the teams and the state, they should be excluded.
I think it's also something where if you're an organization like the IBU or FIS or, you're Norway, and you want to do this, whatever you can to be able to help Ukraine in this, however small it may be, that sport is something that's very important to Russia. And I don't know how much Putin, considers this when he's doing something like, focused on on invading Ukraine. But of course, you have to do every sanction that you possibly can. And I think this is something that can strike the Russian people that, wow, our athletes aren't able to compete. This is something that is serious to us and valuable. And maybe it's just another thing that adds up when they look at all these sanctions that are being imposed and realizing that, hey, this is not worth it.
Well, I think also we've seen that sport Putin's decisions have been inextricably linked to sport when both of the last two invasions that he's initiated have happened during the men's 50K at the Olympics. So he knows that national pride will be at an all-time high. And I think he makes a lot of his geopolitical moves based on what's happening with Russian sports. So he knows that there's great power there.
That's a good point. That's super ironic too, because he's violating the Olympic peace charter in doing so at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And then also the Russian Biathlon Union statement said that the decision that the IBU made was violating the Olympic charter or something, and it was, yeah. I think also for anyone listening who is looking to do something, I know that there are a lot of aid groups out there that are looking for funds. One in particular that I've been looking at is the United Nations Refugee Assistance Fund. So if anyone is, I think it's at refugees is the link, or it's at UN. I can't remember the acronym, but look it up.
You can always send it to me and we can put it in the show notes or something.
Yeah, we can include some ways to help.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts. Obviously, we'll should continue to see how it plays out and continue to talk about it. I guess moving right in, kind of a hard transition, but where in the world are the Cedar Sprigs?
Luke and I are here in Garmisch, Germany, enjoying our week off of racing. You guys have all had more than a few weeks here, but it's been nice to be here.
IBU Cup had 3 weeks of break. So yeah, excited to start up. Our next races are in Lenzerheide, Switzerland, in Kelsey.
Yeah, I'm currently with other Sprig, Hallie Grossman, in Trapale, Italy, which is a town really close to Livigno, and this has been a new location for us. Trapale. That's actually how you say it. And it's been really great getting to train here and explore new venues, some cool new trails. And yeah, it's a really amazing place, and I can't believe that I haven't been here sooner. So.
And I am at the Outdoor Center. I have been doing some training. I've been skiing with kids. I've been preparing various meats in the kitchen was my project yesterday.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, just really living the center NEK life here. Nice.
And how is you teched or helped tech for the home super tour, right, Raleigh?
I also teched for the super tour. And that was fun to be a part of, to see the behind the scenes for the cross country team, and to sort of interact with my other cross country teammates in a little different way. And the number one thing I learned is that no one has figured out a good way to ski with multiple pairs of poles. You have to go look kind of silly. From what I can tell, at least no one domestically has a good way to get 4 to 6 poles to a point on the course without having to like shuffle, duck walk, almost drop one. So if anyone listening knows a good way to do this, we can still kind of ski and make good ground. Maybe I need to invest in a backpack system, but yeah.
I was going to say, for the backpack system, I feel like I saw a Women's Ski Coaches Association logo, or maybe like first stage of a logo idea, with like a ski coach with the pole sticking up out of the backpack.
Yeah.
But the logo was the first time I'd seen that. I haven't actually seen anyone do it, but the idea must have come from somewhere.
Yeah. It's just, probably things you learn after your second weekend of teching is,
I'm interested to see the tuck in the jacket and down the jacket between the jacket and the shirt.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I've seen people do the like in the race bib kind of thing. And then I don't know how they like tuck them through the water belt or something, but it doesn't seem to work very well because they too tip over.
Raleigh, you want to give us?
Actually,
Yeah, you want to give us the row update down in Florida?
So the rowers are in Florida, and they are doing their pre-trials 1 camp. They have the normal cast of characters plus some training partners from the week from the Vesper Club out of Philadelphia. They are staying. Their rowing venue is Canal 54, which is like a canal long straight. I've heard it's a bit windy. So far, the highlight has been the workout that they did this morning, which was a 33-kilometer row, which took around an out and back situation. So basically like a skier workout in the boat for GRP row this morning. And then GRP run is kind of starting to blow the cobwebs off the winter miles. A couple of folks starting to get out and run some indoor track efforts and gearing up for summer road racing. And our GRP run teammate Kenny wrote a book recently. I have not read it, and I can't totally tell you what it's about, but it's a great accomplishment nonetheless. So shout out Canyon for his author status.
We can throw the link to pre-orders in the episode details, because I know that the more pre-orders of the book he gets, the better. So
yeah, what I
yet.
know is that it was about a grassroots political kind of build up to an election that he worked on in Maine. I think he was one of the main guys to organize it, and I think that led to some new ideas that they had for politics in the US that were shared in the book.
Okay, there you go. So if you're into the nitty gritty of grassroots political organization, Canyon has a book for you.
And I think there's something to do with rural America too.
Okay.
So, and then we got GRP Ski, who, as we mentioned before, just competed in the American Birkebeiner. So let's jump into the Berkey. Jake and I had a great time listening to full day coverage of WOJB that we listened to, and there's live stream that just gave great coverage of the lead pack. We also did our own fantasy draft of the Berkey.
Who won our fantasy Berkey, Luke?
And who won our fantasy Berkey? Sneak piece also to the Olympics. So I guess he's just very good at fantasy competitions because it was Jake, sadly, but he also is, I don't know,
fantasy champ.
But anyway, Adam Martin gets third in the men. And our two podiums were Adam Martin third in the men and Caitlin Patterson second in the women. Both came down to just drag races up the main street. And I do say drag because it's the Midwest and that's how you say it there. And yeah, hopefully they got themselves a bratwurst afterwards. Let's see. I also wanted to just kind of highlight our other skiers. Akio had a great race, finishing in 5th, a previous winner. I haven't talked to him, but I would assume that 5th was good. It was a challenging field. There was a French guy that won. And then Braden was in 13th. And then on the women's side, Caitlin, where are my women's results? What happened?
Overall, you got to go.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Well, Caitlin got second, as I said. And then Margie Freed, 7th, was really fighting to stay with the lead pack the whole way. Was kind of on and off, but got back on it a lot of times after falling off. There were a lot of surges going on. I was impressed with her fight for sure. She
must have been on through like 35.
She was on for a long time. Yeah. And I mean, finishing with the 7th was very good. There were some strong skiers out there. And then I know a couple of other skiers experienced some good bonks from what I saw and heard. Annika Landis in 16th, and then Michaela in 25th. So a couple first-time Berkey skiers there, which just always gets me hyped because once you experience the Berkey, you're going to be coming back, until you're at Birch Leg or until you've done 30. I mean, come on.
Berkey fever has to be the only sickness that's perennial.
The flu.
Yeah. And we should note that the entire
And
tested positive for Berkey fever, except for Alex Lawson, who was asymptomatic, negative test. She stayed in Craftsbury, was not sent to Wisconsin for treatment, and will be using this time to prepare for Opa Cup racing, which will take place
nice.
weeks in Italy. So joining her on Opa Cup will be Margie Freed, who will direct from Wisconsin, Minneapolis, St. Paul Airport to Italy for pre-camp. And then Braden Becker will also participate in Opa Cup, but I believe he will do his pre-competition training block here at the Outdoor Center. And then Adam Martin traveled directly from the American Birkebeiner to Europe for World Cup racing. And the remaining skiers will come back and train here in preparation for Super Tour finals in March.
What about Caitlin, Raleigh?
Caitlin Patterson also flying back to Europe. I believe she has select World Cup starts for the remainder of the month.
Okay, sweet. That's awesome. So many people are getting Opa Cup starts. I hadn't realized that. It's a great way to close out the year.
I think that the objective criteria for Opa Cup was maybe like top 6 or 5 at nationals, which, GRP was extremely strong in those races. And so the women got some European starts as a reward for their top performances there. And of course, looking forward to seeing what Braden and Margie and Alex can do as sort of emerging domestic skiers in a European setting, because also, as we all know, racing in Europe and racing in the United States or Canada is a little bit different in a lot of ways. So it's great that they're going to go over there and get a taste of how all of that happens.
Yeah. That's awesome. Go Sprigs.
Yeah, super excited for them.
Well, we could talk about the Berkey all day. Before we move, I mean, we could make the whole podcast about Berkey. I don't know what you guys are prepared for, but Jake and I could probably just talk about the Berkey for a long time, having watched the entire race.
Maybe a couple takeaways.
Yeah, a couple takeaways.
Yeah,
You wanna
top takeaways from each of you.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe you guys watched it, maybe the full length race as well, or even just highlights or from results if you have takeaways to share. But Jake, you want to go ahead and start?
Put me on the spot. One thing. You go ahead and start.
In the women's race, one of the major themes was like who was gonna make the break. Jessica Yeaton was just going off the front for the first half of the race, seemingly super strong, skiing very well. It would kind of get the gap and it would close back up, and it was really hard to tell whether that was her like not wanting to go off the front or not being able to go off the front. And then it was Rosie Frankowski, and she like just upped the tempo on a lot of the climbing sections, would get like 10 to 15 meters. It really seemed to me like she could have gotten that break. And one or two times there were other people with her. Elena, eventual champion. Rosie pulls over, motions for Elena to lead, and Elena doesn't lead, which to me is fair, because Elena had her way that she wanted to win. She doesn't need to go off the front with Rosie if she doesn't want to. But it seemed like Rosie wasn't willing to do it by herself, and maybe not able to because that's super difficult. But it just seemed like she'd get those gaps, really want to go, but then kind of get stuck back. But those surges that she was putting in did really string out the women's race more so than the men's race that had stayed in a pretty big pack for a long time until David Norris essentially put the hammer down and strung it out.
Yeah, I think my main takeaway for the men's field was David Norris's surges and just seeing his strength to be able to do that over and over again. A little bit unclear to me if he was trying to actually like get a gap during those surges, or if he was simply trying to kind of like shake up the field a little bit and make it a distance racer's race, since he probably would think, and I think rightfully so, that he's a very strong sprinter when it comes to distant skiers at the end of a long, hard race. He's won the Berkey before. Coming down, leading off of the bridge, which is very hard to do. It was painful to see Adam get past there coming down the bridge when Adam was leading down the bridge this time. For me, it's Adam's teammate, but David certainly played that tactically quite well. It was a bummer to see the French guy get him at the end. But just for me to like see David's strength in skate skiing was pretty impressive. I think that was my main men's takeaway. My women's takeaway, and what I was maybe most interested to see was the performance of our newly retired female skiers in the Berkey. And unclear to me maybe what level of effort was given by Sophie and Steven. They were a ways back.
Yeah.
But Sadie Bjornsson was very, very impressive. And I don't know what kind of training she's been doing, but it's something that's always interesting to see how long those athletes can kind of hang on to their fitness and how they're able to perform. And the Berkey is certainly a place where we get to see many people try to hang on to that fitness for years and years and years. So we'll see if Sadie continues to be a force in the Berkey, maybe a few top 10s further in her future. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that was fun to see her up there, and a pretty wild suit as well that her and Simi had. And I don't know, maybe the others did as well.
And I think Eric Bjornsson had it too.
Okay.
Probably that whole crew. But yeah,
And
Sadie Bjornsson
Keegan and Liz and
fifth.
Sophie, they all had it. All had that too.
Yeah, Sadie Bjornsson ends up finishing fifth. I mean, she was leading that lead pack for a little while, putting in turns at the front. From what I heard, Sadie Bjornsson was fifth.
Oh, I don't know why I thought she was eighth. Okay, the results that I saw were a little bit messed up. So
Caitlin Gray was eighth.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway.
But
it was kind of that lead pack of five once they shook Margie.
Yeah.
It really was just those five for a while.
And the French women. One other thing I want to say was I heard through the grapevine that Sophie is not super competitive if it's not like in the structure, if she doesn't need to be. So I think maybe her and Liz were just having some fun out there.
And that's okay too.
And that's okay too. Yeah.
So I was not able to watch most of the race because I was preparing various meats in the kitchen. I was able to watch the beginning of the women's race. And it turns out, based on your recap, the part I saw encapsulated almost the entire race. I saw the preem at 500 meters. I saw Sonneson win the preem against Hannah Rudd, at which point I was like, okay, Elena is absolutely capable of winning this race. And then I saw Rosie Frankowski make a little surge, go to the front, turn around, and absolutely no one was interested. And this has happened to Frankowski a couple times. Like when I was here at the Super Tour, she and Elena even had some words during the race about this exact situation. So it's interesting to see how that played out in the longer. Yeah, for the guys, I did level 3 skate intervals with Braden, Akio, and Adam right before they left. And I was very impressed with the speed that they were able to maintain at a sustainable level. I think that importantly for the GRP guys have struggled a little bit with skate skis this year. And based on Adam Martin's race analysis, they had really good skis. And I think that this was also a super fair year when it came to conditions, where like everyone has a ski that's going to work in, snow, super stable conditions, sunny day. All the elite people start at the same time. And so in that sense, I thought it was a really awesome race because there weren't a lot of equipment advantages. It didn't seem like anyone had like unbelievably artificially fast skis that were outside of because there was a waxing protocol, correct?
Was there a waxing protocol?
Was it a fluoro free race?
It was fluoro free, yeah.
That's what I mean. Okay. And so that's also really cool to see that even in a race where you can potentially win a lot of money in a mattress, no one tried to sneak any pure fluoros in. So and it was also just, it's great to have that event back. Like, all of us have friends or people we skied with against in college or in high school. And it was really cool to see all the pictures of people just like getting out and enjoying the sport, getting together in Hayward. And we didn't have that for a little bit. And it's great to have all that back.
Yeah.
Best day of the year. My other takeaway was just, it was really cool to watch and see so much green racing project at the front, especially early on when Adam and Akio were in the front together, leading the race. I thought that was pretty special. I'm sure Adam wanted to make it a hard race. So that's probably maybe why, but but in both the men's and the women's, there were a lot of our bright uniforms up there. So we got great uniforms. Thanks, Podium Wear.
Yeah.
Also, my last note on this is that Jake, maybe you can be the person to do this, but I think we need an all-time tally of Adam Martin versus Ian Torchia in various races, because I feel like those guys like kind of exchanged high level wins and podium in distance cross country skiing for the last little while here. And I think with Adam Martin retiring, we need I need some closure on that rivalry. So if that's a project you're interested in.
Okay, I'm gonna make an on-air prediction of that tally, which I will try to do for next podcast. No promises.
Okay.
That it is going to be over 2/3 Adam victories, which might surprise some people. But I think historically that's going to play in Adam, classic races specifically going to play in Adam's favor. And then they kind of go 50-50 on the skate. So we'll see.
All right.
I'm curious too.
All right. Well, the second most important race series behind the Berkey is the Olympics. And so
third Minnesota State meet.
Oh, great
Thanks,
point.
but
yeah, I forgot.
Raleigh, just let everybody know we have a Minnesota State champion on the pod, Raleigh Gessling.
All right, then
continuing on
the Berkey, the
Olympics. Two on the GRP. Margie Freed also won. So
yeah, but don't deflect.
The Olympics. I know everyone wants to know who won because maybe you were checking a document, maybe you weren't, and the truth is that Jake won. So Jake, congratulations on winning the first quad annual, or however you say it, once every 4 years victory. We're just going to do a quick breakdown. So Jake had 1,168 points. In second was Kelsey, 954. In third was Luke, me, with 851. And in fourth was Raleigh with 546.
Yikes.
And some of the storylines here, I'm just going to start because Raleigh kind of got a little. Ustiagov did not start many races.
I got unlucky.
That was really tough. Similarly with the Slovenian women's relay team, Raleigh, you had two just like no starts for the relays for the Slovenian women.
Jacqueline had to be one of the most underwhelming superstars of the Olympics as well. Who was Raleigh's male athlete.
That's true.
I think JT Bow for Kelsey is the highest scoring.
Yeah, the highest score was JT Bow as an individual. The highest relay team scoring was Norway men, and that's who Jake had.
But in terms of points, it's interesting to note that having JT Bow scored Kelsey 305 versus the Norwegian men scored only 190.
Yeah. And we did end up we did Nations Cup scoring for relays, which was World Cup points divided by 2 for relays. So yeah, that's how the fantasy competitions shook out, but possibly more important than the fantasy competitions with the actual competitions. And
Jake.
So the actual competitions from the fantasy competitions is that I personally felt Markita Davidova's standing misses in the mass start and the individual. I would say more than most other casual observers because she was my women's biathlete. And I think for me on the biathlon side, that was one of the defining factors of these races, at least watching them. And even watching them, I watched a lot of them on replay, so I knew the results. And so many times I'd be watching the race and I'd be like, man, so-and-so could have done something here. So-and-so could have gotten a medal. Or you're watching it and you're just like, did I see the right results? Did I see an intermediate? Like how does this game state go to like the final result I saw on my phone in the morning? And I think that the decisive shooting stages and some incredible performances and some really heartbreaking collapses really hallmarked the biathlon side of it for me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, the last standing stages were really what shook things up almost every race. It seemed like wind was a factor, just seemed like the nerves, possibly altitude, just having it be hard courses, possibly a factor. made things exciting.
I would say my other takeaway on the ski side, also somewhat related to my fantasy team's performance, is that I found it really interesting which athletes were able to sort of bring their best thing and make it work in big. What I mean by that is like the Russians were very successful, like Johag was very successful. And I think that on a course that was at high altitude that had a lot of like really Bolshinov was very successful at a lot of gradual climbs that didn't seem super technical compared to some of the other things and the other courses that they raced, and also was like slow snow, like kind of a slugfest. The athletes that were really fit and had really efficient technique seemed like they could really put the hurt on everyone else, whereas the other athletes that are more technically skilled, that are better on faster, more less straightforward courses, sort of seemed like they weren't able to weaponize their characteristics for the competition.
Yeah, I think that was pretty indicative for like the Swedish women in particular, because we didn't see really much from like Frida Karlsson and Ebba Andersson, who I think would fit into that, what you were just talking about.
And I also had the Swedish women as my, just saying. Yeah, and I think that Klæbo obviously could, his best attributes being really fast on the downhill, being able to close faster than anyone else in the world. His top skills, his top characteristics were overwhelmingly good enough where he could still make it happen. But you could see where, and obviously the Norwegian team scheme to prepare for these races have been called into question, sort of around the depth of their team. But yeah, I think that it was an interesting venue to test people at, because it almost seemed like a bit of a step back in that it went back to more of like the fitness efficiency, like